So the kind of plan for today is less about kind of intro to GHC and more along the lines of how we're actually going to use this platform to think hard about integrating new people into the life of church and managing that process for us. So feel free to kind of jump in with some questions along the way. The hope is by the end of the day, you have a bit of a framework to be able to go back to your GHC toolkit and use some of the pages that are kind of built in there as a kind of leadership team in the kind of integration of new people into church as we go. So we'll look at a couple of the pages within the toolkit. We'll do a bit of a intro to kind of a philosophy of an integration pathway and how that will interact with what happens within the GHC dashboard. So the plan is we'll probably go for about 40 minutes or so. Feel free to ask some questions as we go. But let me just share a bit of an introduction of kind of the integration framework that we've kind of set up as we go. So let me share a couple of things with us. Okay, so this is kind of the framework that will kind of play out across the GHC dashboards as we go. And that is to say that we want to see our churches all have a kind of invitational culture where the members of our churches are inviting friends, inviting family, inviting contacts they have. And that kind of lands us with a whole lot of new people who come through a door to something at our church. So that's kind of our big kind of blue section. So on the dashboards, that's our visitor pages where we see what are the lists of names of people who have begun attending church at least once. And we'll be able to get some information from them. And then from there, I think what we see is that we get kind of three kind of different responses from people. There are those people who come once who just don't return at all. And there's not a lot that we can do with them. We might have to think hard about what is our kind of first visit process if we're getting lots of people who come once and don't come back. Second to those are kind of what we're calling tourists, which are people who kind of come and check us out for a little bit, but they might just be passing through town. They might be visiting relatives and that kind of thing. So they're kind of ones who were around, were somewhat engaged in the life of our church, but for the most part weren't looking to set up and belong here at church with us. And then there's those who we are really interested in, and those are the ones who have come back multiple times. Those who on here are kind of the tracked returners. They're the ones who have come back once or twice or 3 or 4 times, and they're the ones that we really want to work hard at helping them stick and become members of our churches. So for the most part, they're the ones that we're really interested in. Not those ones who came once and didn't come back, not those who have come maybe a couple or a few times, but are just kind of passing through for any number of reasons. But those that are looking to join a church in our area. And from there, we're going to see that there's going to be some who, for all our efforts, just didn't stick for some reason. Or there's those who, through an integration process, have become members of our churches, however we might define that. So really we want to be able to say, what's the welcoming culture of our church once someone is invited? So the big front door is an invitational culture. And once they're through the door, what's the welcoming culture of those who belong to our church? And then how are we helping them stick and become members of our church? That kind of plays into an image that some of you may have seen, which is kind of the flow of people within GHC. So again, you can see newcomers are the big blue kind of arrow, where we want to see a big number of people invited to our church, but then how are they welcomed in to becoming a member of our church? And as you probably know, within the dashboard, there's some attendance data, there's discipleship groups, there's serving that we want to say. That's the health of our members. So really we're focused on what's the newcomer to the orange moment today, that moment of integration into membership of our church, however we might define that. That then plays out to how we actually talk about the categories with people. So if you've been set up in GHC for a little while, you'll know that what we see is that people categories within Alvanto are the way that we want to track the life of someone into church. So for the most part, we want to be able to talk about someone who's new, who's not a member, people exploring, who we want to see make a commitment to calling church home. And then there are those who are members who would say, this is my church. And we want to see them committed to attending a church service in a group, serving in a ministry team. And from Elvanta, that's that category that kind of ends in an underscore or has that color code at the end. And then you might, and this may be something that we can come back to as we go, have a couple of different member categories depending on how you want to track someone into the life of church with you. So this is one pretty simple example of three categories of people that would help us track someone from their first visit to being a newcomer in the life of church, someone we want to help join our church. And then they might land in would be a crowd category, which is you attend our church, you're a member of our church, but you're still somewhat fresh around here. And we don't think that's the end of the journey. And so we can use our people categories to kind of track that process until someone moves into what we might call a core category, which is someone who may be kind of committed to the vision of our church and on mission with us, rather than just saying, this is the church that I go to, that I'm a member of, but I've bought into what this church is about. And the last one here is that kind of then maps over our GHC dashboard to say that from the left to the right, we're working really hard at tracking our new people and our visitor ratios and then our stay ratios. They're really looking at those who have been added into our databases over the last year. And then moving to the right, we're asking the questions of who are those who are members of our church and what is their health like as they go. So that's just a very kind of big overview, kind of really high level of the process that we're trying to help people move from their first visit into membership in our church, and how the GHC kind of platform kind of tries to map that out across the toolkit as people move from their first visit to an integration moment. And then we start to track the health of those who would say they're members of our church. Last thing before I kind of ask if anyone has a question about this, key to this process is our ability to kind of gather details from people for this. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we find at my church, and what I hear lots of churches finding, is this platform is as good as the details that we put into Elvanto and the ability we have to gather even a name of someone early on in their time with us, so that we can begin to walk them through this process. And kind of key to that is that we actually want to know who they are so that we can love them best and help them move into membership with our church in the kind of healthiest and most effective way possible for them. So really kind of key to this whole thing is getting really good information from people so that we can love them and use this kind of platform to help them make that process as smooth as possible. That's kind of by way of introduction to some of the language we're going to talk about. Has anyone want to ask a question or anything just at this very early stage? We're all pretty okay with what we're up to now? Yeah, excellent. Sorry, my 1.5-year-old is talking endlessly next to me. I'm sorry, that's not too loud for you guys. Okay, let me jump into the toolkit then, and spend a bit of time unpacking what is going on here and how we can use that to kind of help people along that process. So I'll share a toolkit with us. No, that is not what I wanted. Oh, there we go. Okay. All right. So here's a toolkit of a generic church somewhere, and we can kind of initially see that where we begin to look at this page, and already we're starting to ask the question of what's our new people like? What is their stay ratio like? And these ratios are, I think percentages are really helpful at this stage to say that this church here has a visitor ratio of 27%. So of their total membership of 663, they've had 178 people added into their database, which gives them a visitor ratio of 27%. So that's really to say just under 1 in 3 people for example, have brought someone to church in the last year, is what we're working at there. So as a church, we might want to be able to set some goals to go, what would it look like for every member of our church to bring one person to church in a year? That would kind of automatically give us a visitor ratio of 100% as we go from there. So there's some like very simple goals that we can begin to set at a visitor ratio level. And then as we move to an integration moment, we start to see of those new people, how many of them have actually become members? At this church, that's 40. So that's 22% of those new people. So if 1 in 3 people have brought someone to church in the last year, then if my maths is correct, it's like 1 in 12 people of your members, your membership has grown by 1/12 kind of thing. I think that's correct. So 22% of those 178 have landed as members of our church. So that's the kind of side of the toolkit that we want to be able to use as we help people integrate into the life of church. Now, a couple of pages are going to be really significant for us as we do this. I want to start with like a strategic level and then dive into a couple of the pastoral ones. So the first one we'll look at is our kind of visitor strategic page. And there's a couple of really powerful things that as a leadership team we can use to see kind of what's happening within our churches. From here, we kind of see where people are coming. We can see when people are coming to our church. And this page was actually, for us at Miranda, this was a really significant page for us as we kind of mapped out our calendar for this year. So at the end of last year, we sat down and we asked the question of kind of when are people coming to our church and how might that inform where we kind of push some mission energy? If there's times in the year where we're already seeing new people coming, how can we harness that rather than trying to force something into a culture that's not really there? And this page became really significant for us to see when are new people coming and how might we utilize those moments through the year in our kind of mission efforts to help people integrate into the life of our church. So what we begin to see here is that on the left, so this first top left box, we kind of begin to ask the question of where are new people coming? So what services, what gatherings, what kind of programs are we seeing new people added into? And we can see the first one, that's a null, so that's not particularly helpful, but we can go 8:45 church and 5 p.m. services at this church. They're kind of performing the best of the gatherings. So we can say there's some kind of invitational culture going on there, or there's something appealing about that service for people to come and visit. And then we might begin to work down and go, what's happening at these other ones and how might do we want to funnel some energy into seeing more new people joining these particular locations, or that being the entry point for them into the life of church with us. The next box over is the one that says, what time of year do new people come? And what we can see here is that for this particular church, June is a really significant moment for them. Now, I don't know what they do in June, but something must happen where they get a whole lot of people added into their database. But what we can do here to dive further into, we can begin to see how June kind of functions over the past few years by actually clicking on a month. So if I click on June, all our other fields will then change according to what has happened in that people who have been added in that particular month. So you can see that playgroup is actually a best performing event in June. Sorry, meltdowns. So June seems to be like a good playgroup month. That middle of winter, people are looking for somewhere to go, a group to join. And then we can see over previous years what's actually happened within the month of June, who's been added over the years. So 2020 June, not a lot happened. I'm pretty sure that was like mid-lockdown. So we weren't added there, but that becomes a filter to see what's happening at each of these places on each given month. So we could do a similar thing for February, and all of our graphs will then change to see what's actually happening that month over years, over locations, and who are those people who have been added. And the hope then from this page is that it kind of prompts a leadership team to ask the kind of questions of what's happening, where might we want to pour some resources into, what locations, what times in the year are kind of new people kind of joining us, where are things going really well for us, where might we be able to already leverage what is happening in the invitational culture of our church. What can we prepare for? What might we dream about? How might we set some goals about what could happen throughout a year? So that kind of becomes a pretty powerful filter to see what's actually happening through a year, what's happening at particular locations. Similarly, you can see how is each location performing through a year. So we might go, this one was going really well, but I would be asking the question, what happened at 8:45 a.m. church in March? Because that was a big month. So something happens that lots of people join early in the year at this particular location. So they're the kind of questions that we begin to ask at this stage, at this page, to go, what's our big funnel and where is it happening? Rather than just getting a picture of, there's 178 new people, that's great, but where are they, when are they, and how are they entering into the life of church with us? Does anyone want to ask a question on this kind of page at this stage? After this, we're going to move to the integration one. But yeah, any questions about this one? Yeah, Oral?
Yes. I think I'm just looking at my dashboard here. I think we just have it as a bulk, so we can't tell how people are coming into our church.
Yep.
So this really is good.
So in terms of the location page, the location section. Yeah.
So probably after this, I'll probably give you a buzz to ask me how to set that part up.
Yeah, so that doesn't, so I think when we spoke, having one location doesn't let you then filter this way. You would just have, they've come to church sometime, but you would still be able to see what time of year they come, but you wouldn't know where as much. Yep, yeah, absolutely.
Because we do have 2 services at the moment. So I would like to see when are the new people coming into the church.
Yeah.
Would be good.
Yeah. And to which one are they going to? Yeah, absolutely.
Mike,
good.
Is it possible to get a quick answer on that one? Because I'm similar. We have a youth group. Our morning service and a youth group are our 2 entry points. Is it possible to get a 1-minute thing on how to record that? Like, is it in the group or the service, you lock those down according to location? Yeah,
so this one's working on our each gathering, whatever that might be, is a particular location within Elvanto. So rather than a kind of geographical location being the whole thing, but if there were, so your youth group would have a location that people belong to. Each church service would be a different location that people belong to.
Okay, great.
Is how that's filtered at this stage.
I think that's the key thing there, Jeff, that it's in Elvanto that you have to set all that up. And then it gets pulled over into GHC from Elvanto.
Great. Yeah. And so if we've got someone comes to youth group on Friday night, then to church on Sunday morning, will GHC record that as when they first came, they came to a youth group event, and that's forever recorded that their sort of entry to church was via the youth group, even though they rock up to church 2 days later. And
that's a good one. Bruce is here, might be able to help.
Elvanto might be able to record that. GHC simply uses location as a filter. So you assign a location to a person, and you can assign multiple locations to a person. So a person, if they came to youth group, you might assign that location. If they start coming to your morning service, you might assign that location. You might choose to take the youth group location off that person at that point if they've actually changed their habits. But for a particular person, you would need to look into their Elvanto activity log to actually trace their pathway.
So this is recording when they first turned up, which location was the person assigned to?
The filter here is based on the current location that they're assigned to. So it doesn't look back at history. It's just what right now, when I pull that data out of Elvanto, what locations is this person? And then you can break it down and filter based on that.
Oh, okay, yeah. So this wouldn't tell you, was it the 8:45 service that got the person? It might have been somewhere else, but now they've landed there.
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's helpful. Yeah.
There's a number of shortcomings in Elvanta. They're not critical ones, but one of the things it doesn't do well is track history. It's very much a current status and a real time. So this is where the person currently is.
Right.
If you want to track back to where they came from, you're going to have to do a little bit of digging, and the activity tab on their profile might be a good starting point for that.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Yep. Cool.
Thanks. Cool. All right, let's jump over to the integration strategic page. If I can go to that one. All right, and we're going to be able to ask somewhat similar questions of this page as well. So we're kind of moving from just the big picture of where is everyone, kind of when have people joined and where have they joined, and this is beginning to ask the question of how are they moving into life at church with us. And what we kind of see on this page at the top left is we're seeing what's their attendance for people who have been added at each location. So if someone has been added at playgroup, for example, what's their attendance been like? And at this church, of the 18 people who have been added, their attendance is all 0. For 8:45, again, we can begin to see at each location of someone who is added, what is their attendance like? Are people coming once and then not returning? Are people coming 4 or 5 times and not returning? We begin to ask those questions at each of these locations on this side. And in the middle, this is our integration one. And that is to say, where are new people becoming members? So for those who have become members in the last year, where are they? What gathering, what service, what group were they attending? So kind of to keep going on about the 8:45 one, we see that at 8:45, 19 people have become members, have moved into a member category at that particular service. And from there, again, just like the visitor page, we can begin to dive into a particular gathering that we might want to move further into. So we might want to look particularly at the 5 p.m. gathering. That'll show us what's our attendance of new people here, what's the trend of new members over the past years at this particular location, and how are any of those individual places helping people join into life at church with us. Oi, sorry, give me a moment. Here you go, play with this. Okay, and then on the right-hand side, we begin to see who are those people and what are the lists of those people at those locations. And this is where we want to be able to move from kind of what's the data telling us to what are the stories of the individuals at those particular locations. Because we might begin to be able to see, as we know the people who have joined, who are they? What's their story into the life of our church? And how can we begin to connect kind of ratios and percentages and raw numbers with real people who have joined our church? And we begin to ask the questions of how sticky might any of our particular congregations be. So are there groups, are there congregations that are seeing a lot of people come once and not return? Are there particular congregations who are seeing lots of people come 3 or 4 times and then drop off? Or are we seeing congregations where we're seeing new people come 10 plus times and move into the life of church? So this is the page that we can begin to ask those types of questions for the different groups that are gathering around our church. And then down the bottom here, again, we can see more year-on-year data for those, and we can see over kind of the past 5 years here, what locations that people are in. Now, where have they been actually landing really well? Where are the new people becoming members at particular services? And depending on what these groups are, you might be very happy with not a lot of members are currently sitting in a playgroup group, that might be totally fine for us. But we might want to say for our Sunday gatherings, where are we seeing members year after year after year joining into the life of our church and joining us, and where might we again want to funnel some energy either into well-performing groups, or where are there particular groups who, if we said, if we give you some resources, we might be able to kind of shift the trend that we've been seeing to see you integrate more people into the life of church and the welcoming culture of a particular group. How can we help that to grow? So that's kind of this page. Again, everything's kind of, we can filter, we can see what's happening year after year on each kind of section as we go. Does anyone ask a question about this page?
Yeah, Cameron, I'm just wondering about the ability to, can you print reports from GHC?
Yeah, so what you can do, you can print kind of save PDFs, but what happens is you kind of don't get the big lists, kind of don't come out in the bottom. Like they kind of prints what you see. I'm pretty sure I'm right in saying that, Bruce.
Or a list, Cameron, you can click on those three little dots in the top right corner and export that to a Google Sheet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it is. Yeah. So you can print a PDF of what's there, or export a list. Yeah.
You wanted to show where the drop down is for the under the share button there for
yeah, sorry. So up here, that'll come down, and we would go download report, and then we would be able to select particular pages or the whole package and download a set of PDFs from there. Or this list here will show up from there to go export, and that'll come as a Google Sheet or CSV file you can download. And that'll just download what's in that particular table rather than anything beyond that. Yeah.
Yep. Thanks.
So Cameron, so is this page, this page is or this section is based on conversion, right? From new to becoming members? Yeah,
that's right. So this is people who have been existing in whatever newcomer category you might have and are now in one of the member categories.
Yeah, and how long of a process is this taking? Is this a month? Is this 2 months? Is this 6 months?
That's totally up to your church. So you might set, so a church might set some parameters. So we're happy to leave someone in new for 6 months. And then after 6 months, if they're still around, let's land them into our kind of maybe a first tier member category.
Yeah.
And then we might say, if they've done a membership course or they're serving, they're in a group, maybe they move further in into a core membership category or something like that. This isn't kind of prescribing how long people sit anywhere. It's kind of showing you what's happening within your Elvanto process. So really to say, what does it look like? How long would someone be at your church before you would say they're a member? And what might they be doing within the life of your church to be considered a member? What would their attendance be? Would you want them to be at church 50% of the time over 3 months? I'm just making numbers up, but that might say, all right, we're happy to say this is your church now. That's really
so.
Sorry.
Yeah, and so Cameron, really, you mentioned earlier about how important the information is that's fed into Elvanto. And so really for this integration, for all this information to be effective, we need to be regularly, whether that's weekly or fortnightly or monthly or something, having a time set apart where we update everything, isn't it? You know, where we look at all the categories and we say, okay, does that person, because that's a manual, that has to be done manually in Elvanto, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And that's a perfect segue into my next point, which was how do we help leadership teams do this? This is kind of where I was going to finish, to go, this is the data that's going to be there for us. So how do we actually build rhythms into our leadership teams, whoever that might be within our church, to make sure this is reliable? Because this is only going to be as good as the data we have in Elvanto. If we're on top of Elvanto, then we can kind of trust what we see here. And I think like asking that saying something is trustworthy is the most helpful way. So as we open this, can we trust what we're seeing? Is this a right reflection of what's actually happening in our church? And the way to do that is to really be on top of what's happening in Elvanto. And that kind of lands in a couple of the pastoral dashboards that we can use these just to begin to ask the questions of who are the people, how might we help them move along? So for example, I think the most helpful one that at our church we use pretty regularly is this integration page. And that's to say that on the left here, these are people who are members, who are new members, and what's their attendance been like at church over the last 3 months. And then this list on the right is really asking the question of who are those who are still new, they're not in a member category, but they might be the ones that we want to have a real discussion about or with about helping them join our church. And we kind of begin to see on the right-hand side here, how many weeks have they attended? What's their pattern over the last 8 weeks? So this person at the top here, they've attended 10 weeks. They're still new. They've been there for 5 weeks in a row. So that's someone that as a leadership team, we might say, all right, where are they up to? How might we help them move from not member to member, whatever that might look like? And then as we go down, we might see there are a whole lot of people who've come once. So this person came 12th of December, 2021. Is that a kind of a data cleaning issue? That you came once, we just need to archive you and that's okay? Or what's their connection with us? But building these kind of things into leadership team rhythms is really significant. So just by way of what we do, it's not necessarily the silver bullet in all of this, but we would look at this page once a month, kind of as a senior leadership team. And we would say, who are the people who are not members? How might we help them move over? Who are the new people? Who are the new members? And have any of them kind of dropped off in their attendance? I think this list here is the one that I'm kind of always pretty aware of. To go, you're not new, so you kind of dropped off you're new and we really want to help you, but you're a new member, so you're still pretty new. So how can we make sure that someone who is a new member who maybe hasn't attended for 4 or 5 weeks, what follow-up are we going to build into that pretty early on, and probably earlier than someone who has been a member of our church for 10 years and hasn't been there for 4 weeks? That might be very different to someone who is a new member who hasn't been there for 4 weeks. So this would be a page that we would look at every month. The visitor pastoral page. Sorry, Bruce, yeah?
Cameron, it's worth noting that each of the names there is a hyperlink into the Alvanto profile of those people. So if you did want to update them, you can just click through and land on their page and do something.
Yeah. Helpful. So that'd be like a once a month thing that we would look at. This visitor page. We look at that every week in our staff meeting, and that's really just a very simple way to capture who's new over the last week with us. We don't necessarily scroll through all 178 people that would be on this list, but we keep a very close eye on who's at the top, who's very new over the last couple of weeks, and who we're going to have a particular eye out on as they kind of move into life with us. So they're the two that at our church we've kind of built that rhythm in, that this page is a weekly one, the integration one is a kind of monthly one, and then particular staff members would then go and use those within their particular ministry. So someone who might be looking after mission within a church, however you might structure your team, might use this page kind of very regularly to go, who are the new people in church with us? How might we be helping them to funnel into our exploring Christianity or something like that? Someone who might be looking after kind of membership or community or integration into the church, they might look at the integration page very often to be going, who are the people I have a particular eye to helping them join our church? But as a whole team, that's the kind of rhythm that we've built in that seems to be working pretty well. But again, depends how your teams or your leadership kind of works together to how often you might use those. But that's what we currently do. Bruce, do you want to add something?
Worth noting, Cameron, also that you can use the location filter, for example, on that page.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
You are just a youth guy and you just want to see the new youth people. You can just
throw that on
into that and sort of give a bit of focus to it.
Yeah. So that'll then filter everything across all of them to be just that page. So if you,
some churches choose just to look at adults and sort of treat the kids as part of a package, and so again you can bring a bit of focus to that if you have a particular interest group.
Yeah, thanks. Anyone got any other questions about these pastoral pages? So these are the ones that I think we would be looking at more regularly than the strategic ones. The strategic ones give us good kind of high level trend data, kind of yearly kind of rhythms. These pastoral ones are much more who are the people, where are they at, and how are we going to best love them as they find their way into the life of our church. But again, like we've kind of said a couple of times, this is as good as Elvanto. So if we're doing well at even just capturing someone's name, adding them into this system, we begin to see how are they joining into the life of our church as we go. Has anyone got any particular question? I've got 40 minutes in. Let me stop sharing this for a moment, but I'm happy to jump back on there. So that's kind of really kind of high level, just to go, this is kind of brings the data that we have in Elvanto back into kind of I think a far more useful kind of tool that sits in front of us. So it's there in Elvanto, kind of helpful and good. We want to make sure that is right and up to date as much as possible. But what we kind of begin to see as we look at these pages is to go, what's that actually look like in a really helpful, clear, understandable way, so that we can see what's happening in our church. We can see what the health of our church is like and how are people finding their way into life with us. That's kind of integration as we move people in. But happy to kind of chat for a couple of minutes if people have particular things they wanted to have addressed, or any other questions. Bruce here, I don't know, hopefully everyone knows Bruce. Bruce is kind of the tech brains behind this operation. So if there's particular tech things, Bruce will be able to help us out with that. But anyone have any?
Thanks, Cameron. Makes sense here on this side. I just pulled my dashboard up again and I saw where we probably need to change a lot of stuff. If we want to be able to read this data properly and give us a result that we're looking for, and to analyze the data that's coming through, and also to disciple people properly. I think this kind of make us more accountable for people when they visit us and want us to become members of our church, and we actually see the path that they're taking. So I see real rich data coming out of this. So I've got homework to do, what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's part of this process, right? We kind of look at what looks pretty and realize how much we need to work in Elvanto. So you go and fix Elvanto, then we come back and you kind of go back and forward as we begin to see what, again, like I said, is kind of trustworthy and true of what's actually happening within our church.
Cameron, your recording, I've just thinking of a staff member who would really benefit from watching it. Can you send a link through to a recording, or how do we access that? Is that possible?
I'll flick that to Mike. So but the reason I'm Mike is I'm on Mike Hasty, who's kind of running his Zoom thing. But I can. I'll send him an email saying you wanted to grab it, and I'm sure we can make something like that happen.
Okay, thank you.
No worries.
I'll give someone else an opportunity to go. Jeff.
Thank you. Just reiterating in terms of your rhythms. Weekly, you'll go to the the pastoral visitor one, and monthly the pastoral integration one.
That's right.
That's your rhythm at church.
That's our current rhythm. And then I should say, and then the strategic ones come up quarterly.
Okay, great.
So I should have added that to it. So we do kind of quarterly strategic more meetings, and that's where those ones would play into it. And the pastoral ones do come up kind of weekly or monthly.
Great, thank you. That's very helpful.
One of the things that you can use the tools to prompt that in is just as Cameron showed how that you could download a PDF report, you can also schedule a PDF report to be mailed to you, so that if you wanted that to prompt your rhythms, sometimes you need a bit of a prompt. Oh, that's right, it's the start of the month, I need to do that. You can actually get the tool to send you specific pages as a bit of a reminder, just built into the tool.
That's fantastic. So just follow those three dots.
Up there under the share, there's an option there to schedule email a report, and there's a scheduling,
Great.
some scheduling options there in terms of the frequency.
That's really great. Okay, thank you.
There's a quick question. So in the location, I'll have to go in and change all the locations to the different departments or areas that we have people coming through in Elvanto, you're saying? Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. And you can do that like via, depending on how you want to filter people and mass manage people into locations, depending on how well you can find them like that. But yeah, basically it's creating locations for everything you want to report on, and then adding people to where they kind of attend or go to or belong in each of their profiles. Yeah.
So the question then, how would I handle this mass? I have a mass data, like a big data sitting there with a lot of people. How would I manage that? Just leave it as that one location?
Well, you'll get more benefit of filtering if you add more locations. So if you, hypothetically, you've got a morning congregation and an evening congregation, then you would create 2 locations. One you call morning congregation, one you call evening, right? That gives you the 2 locations. And then if nobody's assigned to a location, if you bring up the list of people and then just visually go down and check the ones that go to the morning, go down and check that. And then Elvanto will have a little button that pops up saying mass manage. And then you can add all of the people you've checked to the location that you want to, and then you can go and do the rest. So there's a few tools if you know how to use Elvanto, and the people at Elvanto will help you with that, where you can very reasonably quickly bulk add people to a location. Yeah. The least efficient way is to go into everybody's profile and add it one by one, and that's days work. But if you visually can spot that in the list, then you can get through it pretty quickly.
Yeah. The problem with that, Bruce, for us is that we're a large congregation.
Yep.
And that's why I like this tool. Going forward, it will help us to filter people coming through the different services. So presently, we probably won't be able to capture all the people into different services. We have to leave those people as they are. But going forward, we'll be able to, because it's a big congregation.
Yeah, the getting your data into shape is often quite an investment in time and effort. And you've got to decide yourself whether you'll get the payoffs for doing that, right? You could just do it organically over time, or you could say, no, this week we're going to get it right. I don't care how many hours it's going to take, we're going to do it, and just grind through. That becomes, a choice for you guys.
Thank you.
Can you just do a screen share to show how to schedule those reports? I just had a quick play and I couldn't just find the link if possible.
It is so up there, and then correct me if I'm going to the wrong spot, Bruce. Which one is it? And then oh no, it's not that one. Bruce, can you direct me in the right spot? I haven't done this for a little while.
Yeah, I think the thing is, I think you've probably only got view access rather than edit.
Oh, sure. Okay. Yeah.
Right, so you need to have that. Let me quickly see if I can update that.
Okay. Yeah, I've got it. I'll just share my churches real quickly.
Okay, that's
and just show up. Yeah, here you go. So from here, when you click edit, you can get to share, and then it's schedule email delivery.
Okay, great.
So you have to be in like the edit version, and then what pages you want to send out, when you want it, what time, how often, kind of all lands there, and who to.
Great.
Yeah, but it's from the edit
Really
one. Yeah,
great.
thanks.
Thank you.
That's okay. Great. All right. Well, that's kind of time for us. Thanks for your kind of 50 minutes or so. Yeah, feel free to kind of send questions through on the web page, or get in touch as we kind of think about this further. Hope that's been helpful to go, how can we actually use this tool in the rhythm of our kind of helping people join churches and move from kind of new into members with us, and joining our our congregations. But yeah, thanks. And yeah, Pete, I'll get in touch with Mike. We'll sort out some recording kind of viewing or something like that. Yeah, over the next kind of week or so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. That was really well done.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Cameron. Thanks for persevering.
Oh, it's all right. Hopefully it wasn't too wild in the
No,
background.
it was fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
See you all. Catch up.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.